I didn't think learning to code would be like this. Switching from majoring in business to computer science halfway through college probably wasn't my best idea. But then again, neither was picking business to start with. Heck, up until tonight, I couldn't even program my thermometer settings. But here, in this cramped dorm room, with only the tiny desk fan and my roommates snoring to keep me company, I had finally cracked the case. My first Hello World program. I leaned back, letting out a sigh of relief. This must be what a fledgling hunter feels like when they shoot their first deer, or what a medical resident experiences when they first save a life. Not that I would know. I was going after a business degree for 2 years after all. I looked again, admiring my work like I had just sculpted the most beautiful marble statue the world had ever seen, with the only illumination in the room coming from the screen, imprinted with my beautiful code. System.out.println brackets hello world. But after grinding through my textbook and my poorly written notes for the past hour with only my screen light, looking like a dumb caveman, I felt like Albert Einstein. With a feeling of finality, I escorted my finger to my decrepit laptop's enter key. Before I even got the chance to feel nervous, those 2 gorgeous words manifested themselves in the console. Hello world. I would have shouted for joy, but I figured that waking up my roommate probably wasn't the best move. In my earlier college days, I probably would have made a cocktail to celebrate, but at that moment, all I could think about was a cold water. I guess I learned something in business after all. As I reached out of my chair for our mini fridge, just barely out of reach, my screen flashed in the corner of my eye. At first, I figured the screen was burning out on me. That computer was already unreliable, but I just couldn't bring myself to replace it, partly out of respect to the service it had done for me in the past few years, and partly because I'd blown all my cash reserves on a few too many nights out in my stupider days. Seeing what actually happened to the computer jolted me out of my self-reflection. Bolting upright, I stared at the words that had just appeared beneath my beloved Hello World. Hello, John. I definitely hadn't typed that. Besides that, nobody has called me John in years. I've been going by my middle name since high school. As I felt my heart rate increasing, along with the urge to wake up my near comatose roommate, I utilized a technique that had helped me since the accident last year. I breathed out. There was probably a logical explanation behind the message. A prank, a glitch in the settings, or maybe I was just more tired than I felt. Despite the barrage of explanations my brain produced, none could seem to quell the worm of anxiety beginning to writhe around in my guts. I wondered if maybe I should have stuck with business after all. Just as I was about to close my laptop and call it a night, a new message flashed in the console. Talk with me, John. The explanation sank to the bottom of my head. Whatever was going on, we definitely hadn't learned anything like it in my programming class yet. As dumbfounded as I was, I knew it wasn't Java, and I thought it was unlikely to be an issue with my IDE. I leaned in close to the screen. It seemed like the only reasonable solution was to just ask. The clicking sound of the keys filled the room as I went to work. System.out.println brackets who are you? I slammed the enter key and the screen flashed again. I admire the efforts you've taken to improve yourself, John. You've come a long way in the last year, John. The mysticism didn't help me. I shuffled anxiously in my chair, unaware of how much I was craning back to read the text. As much as I wanted to turn off the machine, I had to keep going. I tried again. System.out.println bracket. What are you? A flash. An error, a mistake. Perhaps you could say a glitch in the system, John. The sound of my roommate changing position in his bed nearly caused me to fall out of my chair. I pounded on the keys. System.out.println bracket. What do you mean? I sat there, my hands hovering over the keyboard, my palms growing clammy. After a few agonizing seconds, the console flashed again. You lied about what happened last spring. Goosebumps all at once peppered my entire body. My mouth went dry. I almost called out to my roommate, but as I opened my mouth, no sounds came out. Instead, I turned around and went back to typing. My fingers moved by themselves. System.out.println bracket. It wasn't my fault. A flash again. You didn't have to lie. You could have and should have taken responsibility. You didn't have to drive that night, John. A strange mix of sadness, fear, and an endless volume of guilt infested my body. I could feel my head going light, and I grew unable to resist the chills working their way up my spine. The memories I'd spent the past year working through, the memories which led me to change who and what I was, slammed into me like a train. I sat, frozen, stunned by these words produced either from the code, my frantic tired brain, or perhaps a force I did not entirely understand. The console flashed again. You killed her, John. I threw the laptop against the wall, where it shattered with a loud crash. Unable to stop myself, I assumed the fetal position in the chair like a coward. I'd find a way to buy a new laptop. I might even find a way to work through the memories which lay dormant, coming out to assault me at unpredictable times. I'm not sure what the words from the console were. Hallucinations, maybe. I was typing frantically by the end. It's a wonder why my roommate never woke up. I unfurled myself from my position. I could still feel the heat of the tears in my eyes. I turned the chair around, about to make my way to my small dorm bed, when I froze. My roommate was sitting upright in his bed. I couldn't make out his features well, with only the moonlight from the window barely illuminating parts of the room. The position of his body suggested he was directly facing me. The whir of the fan had ceased by this point, but I'm not exactly sure when. But, Brian? I stammered out. No response. Brian? I could hear the shuffle of his body leaning forward, his large body leaving the bed. I scampered from the chair, using the desk to prop myself upright. Bri, what are you doing? As he neared the window, I caught a glimpse of his eyes. They appeared glassy, like he had cataracts. He let out a grotesque, toothy smile. He opened his mouth, sensually and slowly breathing out. Hello, world. The two words, which I was so proud of only 10 minutes ago, seemed to come from everywhere, encompassing my entire being for what felt like an eternity. An unstoppable tide of fear and self-loathing engulfed me as he said the words. I wanted to die. I felt like I was decaying away in that cramped dorm, my thoughts scattered and my brain broken. And then I ran. I sprinted for the door, fumbling as I tried to unlock it. The Brian Thing's steps growing louder and more intense behind me. I managed to undo the lock, running down the halls of the dorm in panic. The next thing I remember is heaving in the courtyard, the breath stripped from my burning lungs. I had apparently woken up some of the dorm, and a few of the guys there had followed me out. One of them, a freshman, thought I was high on something. I didn't go back to the dorm that night. Brian was never found again. The police questioned me about it, but they were never able to establish a concrete connection. They even did a drug test on me, but I've been clean since the accident. The laptop that I demolished seemed to have no abnormalities. The hardware, aside from what I had smashed, was fine. The same, unfortunately, cannot be said for Brian. We were never particularly close, but he didn't deserve whatever happened to him. Sometimes I think I see him out of the corner of my eye, but it's always just a trick of the light, like some kind of mirage. At least I think it is. While I would not consider myself a superstitious man, I do all my coding during the day now, and always in a public place. The constant paranoia since that incident only adds to the immense magnitude of grief, and I only hope that whatever that code was, and whatever happened to Brian, stays far, far away from me.